Yes, everyone, welcome back to the channel. Stephen Howson, and I got something that I've been rolling around my head as a bit of a theory for, honestly, a minute or two. And that is, could the class of 92 buy Manchester United? Now, wealthy individuals, clearly, the lot of them. Probably all right for a pint. Probably not worried about the rent this month, I wouldn't have thought, any of them. But are they wealthy enough to be able to buy Manchester United? This club is going to go for sale for somewhere in the region of 7 to 10 billion when it eventually hits the market and is sold. And I don't think the class of 92 have that sort of cash. Now, what the class of 92 do have is David Beckham. And I think David Beckham as the front for any sort of bid would be sensational. But let's get into the sort of context of all of this. So, of course, recently we had the news coming out of Old Trafford. It's just a little bit of news that Cristiano Ronaldo and Manchester United had severed the contract and decided to go their separate ways. Within hours of that, reports started coming seemingly out of nowhere that the Glazers were considering selling Manchester United. Sky News was probably the first credible source that I saw that announced something was happening, and then it was soon followed by others coming out of the woodwork left, right and centre. And then we've had Apple, David Beckham, Dubai, Jim Radcliffe, literally anyone that anyone can tie any sort of tedious link to has just been linked with buying the club. And the club later that evening put their own statement out, and the key info was this, that the board will consider all strategic alternatives, including new investment into the club, a sale, or other transactions involving the company. It's quite a broad statement, and I think someone mentioned that that's something they legally have to do because of the stock market, which, okay, is fine. So a sale, can we believe that there's a sale going to happen? Them putting us up for sale or even talking about a sale is the first time that they've even come close to saying that, despite all of the protests and everything else from the last 17 years. Now, I sort of covered why I think that's happened in a couple of videos, but just for someone who's happened to stumble on this and not seen the others, I'll cover it again very briefly. I think Ronaldo's actions didn't happen in a vacuum and they don't have zero consequences. But I don't think they were the driving force in the Glazers deciding that they want to leave the club. I think the bigger factors, the European Super League I think is the biggest. The interest rates and the recession are a major factor. When you owe £600-700 million, a slight fluctuation in the interest rate costs you a lot of money. And I think the fact Liverpool are on the market was also another driving factor in all of this sort of stuff. So I don't think Ronaldo did absolutely nothing, but I don't think he was a major driver in them putting this statement out. And I think this has probably been coming for some time. And I think the protests had an impact. I think the stoppage of the game against Liverpool had some impact. I think the fans have had some impact in this. They can't know, they can't not know that the fans hate them. They must know. So the question quickly then turned from the fact that Manchester United might now be, for the first time since Glazers have owned us, because it was only a couple of months ago Jim Radcliffe was asked the question, would you ever buy Manchester United? He was like, yeah, I'd be interested, but they're not for sale. Who's going to buy Manchester United? A rich person from, an American oligarch, a Russian oligarch, a Saudi or a Middle Eastern oligarch, a nation state, a wealthy individual like Jim Radcliffe, Apple, or something a little bit closer to home. The class of 92 took over Salford City in 2014, and they were shortly joined by Peter Lim and David Beckham, who I'm pretty sure were part of it all on the start. But I think the optics of having Beckham own this club in England whilst he was trying to push for his MLS franchise, they probably decided to keep him away from it. And as soon as that was announced, it was very quickly announced that David Beckham was part of the board at Salford as well. They achieved a lot of success. They essentially took over Salford a couple of leagues higher from where Paddock are, and now they're in League Two. With ambition, excellence and cash, they've been spendy with it. They've achieved successive promotions and found themselves now as part of the 92 in the Professional Football League. And obviously you've had Beckham's foray into the MLS with Inter Miami, which not quite having the same level of success Salford are having, but still growing a club out of nothing, not to be sniffed at. So it's an idea that I sort of had when they first took over Salford. Like, is this like a little bit of a sandbox, a little bit of an internship into how to run a football club? Now they know the performance side. The class of 92 boys, Beckham, Gary Neville, Phil Neville, Nicky Butt, Paul Scholes. They've all had a lot of different jobs in football. Gary's basically had every job in football, from pundit to coach to manager to player, to director and owner. Nicky Butt was head of the youth development at Manchester United, then head of the academy. Paul Scholes has been a manager, not very successfully, and an unbelievable footballer, and also a coach. Bex has only really sort of been a director, but he's the perfect sort of figurehead for any of that sort of stuff. Could this be a possibility that with Peter Lim's money and connections, and with the connections that would undoubtedly rally behind them, if David Beckham said, yeah, me and the lads are interested in buying Manchester United, we just need a little bit of help with the cash, do you know how quickly a line would form behind them? How quickly Manchester United could return back to the top with the investment that those guys would attract? The ruthlessness at which Gary has operated Salford, wouldn't necessarily like to see managers rotated the way they have done at Salford, but what they have achieved is insane. They have taken over a football club, created a culture of winning, and got successive promotions out of some of the most difficult leagues that you could play football in this country. The conference is horrendously difficult. Maybe only the Championship comes close in terms of getting promoted out of it. And I spoke to someone who works for these guys that used to work at Manchester United. And I said to him, what's the long-term game for Salford? This is 2 or 3 years ago. I said, what's the long plan? Like, what are they trying to achieve with it? And his answer was very, very straightforward: Premier League. And I went, seriously? And he went, yeah. And I said, does Salford have the fan base to support being in the Premier League? And he might be absolutely correct. And he went, you don't need it. The TV money's enough. Now, that might be the ambition of Salford, and that might be something that they actually go on and achieve, because they're pushing hard to promote into League One, and then they're not far away. They're 2 promotions away. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to see Salford in the Premier League. But at what point can they switch and become owners or managers or operationally involved in a Manchester United project? Because I'm pretty sure there's rules that state that you can only have a maximum 10% stake, I think it's 9.99% actually, in more than one club. So theoretically, you could hold a stake of 9.7% in every single Premier League club, and there's no conflict of interest technically there. Unless they're going to do it as individuals. Or unless they're going to be, I don't know. So let's look at the reasons what that would hold them back. Initially, money. According to Insider, the net worth of David Beckham is reported to be somewhere in the region of $450 million. And I think he's the absolutely most cashed out. You're looking at the club valuation being somewhere around about $3.75 billion. And I think you're looking at maybe double that to be able to get the club sold. And I think a bidding war would happen, which, as I've said a couple of times, I think could push the price up to closer to 10 billion, which is bonkers, but I think it could happen. Another reason why it might not happen is they're busy. Gary Neville might be the busiest guy in the whole world, and I think that Gary's also dipping his toes into politics. From the outside, that's where it seems like, at least anyway. Beckham obviously is a partial owner of Salford into Miami, and he's doing various bits and bobs, including being a much maligned figurehead for Qatar. Gary Neville could be going into politics. I honestly feel like there's minutes before he announces a run at being Labour leader. And then the rest of them, Nicky Butter's just taken over as CEO of Salford. Was the stepping aside of Gary Neville at Salford as CEO anything to do with this, or was it anything to do with going into politics? Not sure. Financial Times have reported that Beckham is open to talks with other investors to get involved with a potential bid. And I think that would be the major factor. I think it'd be a very, very attractive to any random investor if they could have David Beckham as the figurehead of their consortium. I'm absolutely certain of that. And another big factor is if the class of 92 owned Manchester United. You've seen the success that they've achieved with Salford, a club that, okay, I think a lot of them lived in Salford. I think the digs that they had when they were training at the Cliff, when they were academy players, was in Salford. But there's no real connection to that football club of Salford City. And that was one of the criticisms of their takeover of Salford City when they joined, is that Salford, the Amis, hilariously now in the professional league, were a team that played in orange. They took over and went red, white and black, like United. So they created this mini Manchester United that blasted through the leagues. But we do know that they can run a football club. And these lads are Manchester United. These have got it running through their veins. They are Manchester United to the core. They came through the academy. You know, they were taught by Brian Kidd, Nobby Stiles, Eric Harrison, and obviously Sir Alex Ferguson. They win the FA Youth Cup. They win countless trophies. They win the Champions League. These lads are Manchester United. Could you ever question whether or not they was trying to do the best thing for the club? I don't think you could. And I think the key is Beckham is such a celebrity, such a poster boy for anything, as we've seen with the World Cup. I think that people would fall over themselves to try and get involved with David Beckham. And I think this is something that they might have known about. Back in May, David Beckham was interviewed at the Miami Grand Prix. And, I mean, I love David Beckham. But if there's a single criticism you can have of David Beckham is he's never had an opinion in his life. He is media trained dictionary definition. Everything's great, everyone's amazing, and everyone's doing a great job. He doesn't ever speak in certainties. He always leaves a door open because he never wants to be wrong on anything that he has said. David Beckham was extremely firm. And he said, there will be changes at Manchester United. This is back in May. And when I look at Gary Neville's empire, is so impressive what he's doing, and he's doing amazing things in the city of Manchester when it comes to redeveloping stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if all of the steps that we are seeing, which on the outside might appear random, might appear unconnected, I wouldn't be shocked to see all of these ducks start to line up. Phil Neville's out here getting managerial experience, both with England women and now over it in Miami. That's a very positive thing for Manchester United women. And having someone on the board with coaching experience, massive. David Beckham is out here running a football club with a lot less pressure on it. In a market that's quite easy, doesn't have the threat of relegation. Gary Neville and Nicky Butt have been out here working hard through some unbelievable leagues, achieving success on the football pitch, getting to grips with the academy, getting to grips with FA rulings and laws on how things are governed in the back end of football clubs. They are Manchester United. And we've had people running our football club who don't care about the football club. We've seen these guys bleed for us. They wouldn't be doing it for money. They would be doing it for glory, for the honest pursuit of excellence. You couldn't be more opposite to what the Glazers were. They've already put their bodies on the line for this club. They've already achieved more than virtually any other players that have come through the door for Manchester United. They get it. what they've already done at both Inter Miami, which basically started in COVID. Beckham has forged a football club from nothing. That is sheer power of will and wanting to make something happen. And he's done it. What they've done at Salford, taking over a team literally at the bottom of non-league, and now find themselves in a football league. If he'd have said, they haven't really spoke about their ambitions. If he'd have said, that's what I'm going to do, you'd have laughed. You genuinely would have laughed. We know they can run football clubs. We know they love Manchester United. We know they've got contacts. But for me, the most important thing is they are fans. The only thing that could tip me over the edge with this and make me just fucking lose my mind with excitement is if they announced a bid and said, we do not have the money, or we have someone who's willing to back us to a certain degree. We actually want the fans to own this with us. If Manchester United was bought by the class of 92 in conjunction with a 50+1 ownership from fans, I would lose my fucking mind. Because that is the best thing for the future and security of Manchester United as we go forward. And maybe they're not interested. And maybe I've drawn lines that don't exist. But what if? It'd be fucking awesome, wouldn't it? Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.